So the first thing we're doing here on the pattern is we cut off, it looks like we cut off the front corner. And now what we're doing is we're testing out the sleeve tissue to see how long it will be on him. And now we're looking at the pattern envelope to see on the original pattern if the shoulder was meant to drop off the shoulder or was it placed rather high. So we took measurements of Joey's arm and kind of down to where he wanted it to fall on his wrist from the part on his shoulder that we assumed that the seam was going to be. So he's cutting it on the lengthen shorten line and using a piece of extra tissue from the pattern. We're just adding those extra inches now to the bottom of the sleeve. Joey's using the cutting mat, and he's using the lines in the cutting mat to basically line the pattern up. It makes it a lot easier to keep all your pattern pieces straight. You can use the grain lines to line up your pieces, and then you just have to measure how far apart you want them. Use a lot of tape when you make modifications to your patterns. I'm explaining here that when you add or shorten at when you use the lengthen or shorten line, the pieces don't necessarily perfectly line up, so you end up having to do a little averaging as you're cutting. Now we're looking at the back panel and seeing how far down he wants it to fall and just looking at the hem. Checking out the instructions to see probably just see the construction order they have. And what we're doing now is noticing basically we're taking out the curve. This is, you have the back panel and the front there. The front's on the right and the back's on the left. We're using some extra tissue paper and we're basically just making that a straight seam. And we'll end up doing that. Use lots and lots of tape. We'll end up doing that to both pieces. You can tell I need a new blade in my rotary cutter. It doesn't, you have to have a really good technique. It's a little bit of a rocking motion as you're cutting to get it to cut. Probably really should treat myself to a new blade soon. Just making it perfectly straight after numerous cuts. What we'll do next is we'll put the pieces next to each other and make sure everything comes together and that it looks okay. I'm pointing out that there's still a little bit of a curve there, but that's not bad. Men don't have to be wearing absolute potato sacks. And now what we're doing is I think we're trying to determine if we need to make the back wider, and I believe we determined that we do need to make it wider. So using an extra piece of tissue, we're just going to tape this on. This will end up being the center back seam, you're looking at the pattern piece upside down. So the side on the right is going to be the middle back, and we're modifying this pattern. It was originally cut to have this curved back seam, so it would actually be really nice for a woman to have the jacket come in a little bit at the small of her back, just a little bit more shapely. But we don't really need that, so if we make this straight, we can also make it so we cut it on the fold instead of cutting two separate pieces. And that'll just speed things up a little bit in construction. So now I think what we're doing is we're looking at the collar. Joey's got the collar piece, original collar piece in his lap right now. And we're just doing this on the fly, so we're kind of inventing this, how we're going to make this all work together. So there's a little bit of having to imagine it in 3 dimensions, which is rather difficult sometimes, where you're trying to determine, okay, what exactly is this going to be when it's all sewn together? Sometimes what seems like what pieces will attach to, especially in something like this, is not always, things are not always exactly how they seem. Now we're measuring the sleeve cap here. I believe what we're doing is we're taking some of the ease out of the top of the sleeve. I believe we measured the arm opening, and now measuring. Generally the sleeve cap has more fabric and will ease in, giving you a little bit of a pronounced shoulder at the top of the sleeve, and that's not something we really want. Actually, after we made the first muslin, we ended up reducing that sleeve cap at least one more time, if not twice, to just make it really flat. So what we did was, to preserve the top of the shape, we just moved we made our own lengthen shorten line. We just cut the top of the cap off there and just slid it down, and now I'm explaining to Joey that he has to now cut the side shapes there where the tape is, basically where he's using the pencil. He has to kind of blend that together, basically. And sometimes if you need to use a pencil or something to mark on the pattern before you cut, it's a good idea. Of course, you can tape it back on if you cut something off that's wrong, but it's just sometimes the tape gets a little bit thick. So now I'm making some markings on the pattern, I think probably putting cut on fold type notations. Well, that's the end.